In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, a vast and awe-inspiring arena filled with the representatives of countless alien species, the air hummed with tension. The Cravorn General, Garvok, stood at the center. His presence was commanding, his form imposing, a 12-foot mass of scaled muscle, shimmering armor, and an air of superiority. His voice boomed, echoing through the chamber like a thunderstorm. "Humans!" Garvok sneered, his slit pupils narrowing as he scanned the assembly. "Pathetic creatures of a fragile world. You hide behind diplomacy and technology, unwilling to face true tests of strength. Your cowardice is an embarrassment to this council and to the cosmos." The words hung heavy in the air. Among the many species present, there were murmurs of agreement, nods of approval, and the occasional derisive laughter. Humanity's representative, Ambassador Julian Orsova, sat silently at his designated place. His face betrayed no emotion, his posture unshaken by the storm of ridicule. Garvok's voice rose again, feeding off the murmured support. "We Cravorn value strength, resilience, and honor. Traits you humans lack? Prove me wrong. If your species has even a shred of dignity, you will accept our challenge. One soldier, one battlefield, one victor. Or shall I assume you'll cower behind your words as always?" The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates turned to one another, whispering and speculating. Some laughed outright at the absurdity of the proposition, predicting humanity's immediate refusal. Others watched with interest, curious to see how the fragile-looking species would respond. Ambassador Orsova finally rose, his movements deliberate and calm. His dark suit was unadorned, a stark contrast to the extravagant attire of the other representatives. He waited until the room quieted, his expression unwavering. "General Garvok," he began, his voice measured and firm. "You claim we lack honor and strength because we do not seek conflict for the sake of it. But let me remind you, there is more than one kind of strength." Garvok let out a guttural laugh, his sharp teeth glinting under the council's artificial lights. "Words! That is all your kind ever offers. Empty words." Orsova ignored the interruption, continuing with a steady gaze. "You demand a trial by combat. Very well. Humanity accepts your challenge." A ripple of astonishment passed through the chamber. The laughter died, replaced by a stunned silence. Garvok's smirk faltered for a moment, replaced by an intrigued tilt of his head. "But," Orsova added, his tone sharp, "we will send only one soldier. One. That is all we require." The silence broke into a cacophony of disbelief. Delegates from other species exchanged incredulous glances. Whispers of suicide and arrogance filled the room. Garvok's laugh returned, louder and more boisterous than before. "One soldier?" he mocked. "You seal your fate with your own hubris, human. I almost pity the poor creature you send to face us." Orsova's calm never wavered. He inclined his head slightly, almost as if dismissing Garvok's words. "We do not underestimate our opponent, General. But you underestimate us at your peril." Garvok's amusement faded into a scowl. "Very well. Let it be known that humanity has chosen to stand. Your soldiers' defeat will be swift and absolute. Prepare yourselves for humiliation." The Cravorn general turned, his armored footsteps reverberating as he exited the chamber. The other delegates followed suit, their expressions ranging from bemusement to quiet respect. Only Orsova remained still, his steely gaze fixed forward. As the last of the representatives left, a human aide approached the ambassador. "Do you think this is wise, sir? The Cravorn are legendary warriors. Their champions are bred for combat." Orsova finally allowed a small, knowing smile to tug at his lips. "They think strength is only measured in muscle and size. They forget that humans excel when the odds are against us." With that, he turned to leave, his steps unhurried. The council chamber, now empty, seemed to echo with the quiet resolve of humanity. Their response to Garvok's challenge wasn't arrogance. It was the calm confidence of a species that had faced extinction time and time again, and always found a way to endure. The galaxy would soon learn the truth. Humanity's strength wasn't in numbers, nor in brute force, but in something far greater. Captain Aaron Vasquez sat alone in the dimly lit briefing room, the soft hum of the ship's systems filling the silence. Her dark hair, streaked with a few strands of gray, was tied back in a no-nonsense braid. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the tablet in her hands, displaying schematics, reports, and profiles of her soon-to-be opponent. She was no stranger to impossible missions, but this one felt different. The call had come days earlier, pulling her out of a quiet retirement. She had traded battlefields for a modest home near the Appalachian Mountains, finding solace in early morning hikes and evenings spent with dusty old books. But when the Council's message reached her, she didn't hesitate. Humanity needed her. Erin had earned her reputation as one of Earth's most brilliant tacticians during the Orion Wars. She had led small teams into situations where survival was a distant hope, yet she always found a way. Whether it was outsmarting superior forces, exploiting terrain, or dismantling enemy operations from within, her adaptability had become the stuff of legend. But the battle ahead was unlike anything she had faced. Her opponent, Garrett Hack, was a Cravorn, a species engineered for war. The reports described him as nearly invulnerable, with reinforced biomechanical exoskeletons and weapons fused to his body. A towering figure with strength that could crush reinforced steel. Erin knew that brute force wouldn't win this fight. Fortunately, brute force had never been her style. The door hissed open, and Commander Lane, her old commanding officer, stepped in. He carried a faint smile, though the worry behind his eyes was unmistakable. "You didn't even ask what it was before saying yes," he said, setting a holographic projector on the table. Erin smirked. "Didn't need to. You don't call me unless the stakes are high." Lane activated the projector, and a 3D image of the alien champion materialized, slowly rotating. "This is what you're up against. Garrett Hack. 12 feet tall, built like a tank, and equipped with weapons we've barely scratched the surface of understanding." Erin studied the hologram, her expression unreadable. "Weak points? Not many," Lane admitted. "We've identified potential vulnerabilities in the joints and certain biomechanical interfaces, but good luck getting close enough to exploit them. His kind fights with brute force, overwhelming their enemies before they can think. No one has ever outlasted a Cravorn champion in single combat." Erin leaned back, her gaze still locked on the projection. "Good. Overconfidence makes them predictable." The next days were spent in relentless preparation. While the Cravorn champion trained in brute displays of power, smashing through obstacles and perfecting his combat strikes, Erin focused on precision. Her training wasn't about raw strength but efficiency. In one session, she navigated a simulated battlefield designed to mimic the terrain of the neutral planet where the duel would take place. Her suit's adaptive systems allowed her to blend with the environment, making her a shadow. She used speed, misdirection, and carefully placed traps to dismantle drone opponents before they even realized she was there. In another session, she sparred with a robotic trainer that mimicked Cravorn fighting styles. She didn't aim to overpower it. Instead, she focused on exploiting openings and learning to predict its moves. By the end of the session, the robot lay immobilized, its joints severed and circuits sparking. But it wasn't just physical preparation. Erin spent hours poring over data on Cravorn anatomy, memorizing every detail. She learned how their biomechanical systems worked, how their enhanced vision could be disrupted, and how their over-reliance on brute force left them vulnerable to subtler tactics. Her gear was minimal but cutting-edge. A lightweight adaptive armor that could withstand short bursts of extreme force, a multifunctional tool capable of everything from generating EMP blasts to deploying nanodrones, and a blade forged from a metal that could cut through almost anything. One evening, after a grueling training session, Erin sat in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars. Lane joined her, handing over a steaming cup of tea. "You've fought impossible battles before," he said. "But this one's different. You won't have a team, Erin. It's just you." She nodded, taking a sip of the tea. "That's what they think too. That's their mistake. This isn't just me against him, Lane. This is humanity against their arrogance." Lane chuckled softly. I hope you're right. Trust me, she said, her tone unwavering. They've already lost. They just don't know it yet. As the day of the duel approached, Erin fine-tuned her strategy. The key wasn't to engage Garrett Hack on his terms. She would make him doubt, hesitate, and falter. She would use the battlefield against him, turning his own strength into a liability. The final briefing came the night before the duel. Lane stood before her, his demeanor serious. You've got one chance, Erin. The entire galaxy will be watching. Whatever happens out there will define how they see us. Erin strapped on her armor, the faint hum of its systems activating. Then let's give them a show. The door to the chamber opened, and she stepped forward, her boots echoing against the metallic floor. Behind her, the weight of humanity's expectations loomed. But Erin carried it with ease. She wasn't walking into a fight, she was walking into history. The Cravorn thought they were prepared for humanity. They had no idea what humanity was truly capable of. The battlefield stretched across a barren, alien landscape. The ground was cracked and blackened, exhaling thin plumes of sulfuric steam that twisted upward into a bruised purple sky. Rivers of molten lava snaked between jagged cliffs, casting a hellish glow across the terrain. The air shimmered with toxins, and the only sound was the distant rumble of tectonic unrest. This was no place for the faint of heart, a planet chosen specifically for its unforgiving nature. A massive crowd of alien delegates gathered in the observation platforms high above the arena, their forms encased in protective shields. Holographic projections transmitted the scene to every corner of the galaxy, ensuring no one would miss the spectacle. The galaxy had turned its gaze to this duel, eager to witness the outcome of what many believed was a foregone conclusion. From the far side of the field, a monstrous figure emerged. Garrett Hack, the Cravorn champion, stepped onto the battlefield, and the ground trembled beneath his weight. He stood over 12 feet tall, a nightmare of flesh and metal. His biomechanical exoskeleton gleamed in the lava's glow, a blend of jagged armor plates and pulsing organic veins. Weapons were fused into his arms, one a spiked mace that could shatter stone, the other a serrated blade that seemed to hum with energy. His eyes, glowing red, scanned the arena with cold, predatory intent. The spectators erupted into gasps and cheers at the sight of him. Even species accustomed to war and brutality couldn't help but marvel at the sheer menace he exuded. The Cravorn general watched from his platform, arms crossed and a satisfied smirk on his face. This was their champion, their pride, their proof of dominance. On the opposite side of the battlefield, Erin Vasquez stepped into view. She was a stark contrast to Garrett Hack, small, human, unassuming. Her adaptive armor clung to her frame, its surface shimmering faintly as it calibrated to the environment. She carried no visible weapon save for a compact multi-tool secured to her belt. To the untrained eye, she looked woefully unprepared, an insect standing before a behemoth. The alien spectators erupted into derisive laughter and mocking chatter. "That's their champion?" one delegate sneered, their voice carried over the crowd. "She's doomed!" Erin ignored the noise. Her expression was calm, her dark eyes scanning the battlefield with clinical precision. The uneven terrain, the lava flows, the toxic atmosphere, all potential obstacles, but also potential opportunities. She noted the way Garrett Hack moved, the weight of his footsteps, the slight delay as his massive frame adjusted to the shifting ground. Every detail was logged and analyzed. Above the battlefield, a booming voice echoed across the arena, announcing the terms of the trial. "This combat will be to the death. No interference will be tolerated. The victor species will claim the honor of this council. Prepare for battle." Garrett Hack let out a guttural roar, the sound reverberating across the field. He raised his mace arm high, the weapon crackling with energy, and slammed it into the ground, sending a shockwave through the earth. The display drew cheers from the crowd, further cementing their belief in his inevitable victory. Erin remained still, her face betraying no emotion. Her calm unnerved some of the more observant delegates, though most dismissed it as the stoicism of someone resigned to their fate. Only those who truly understood humans, their quiet defiance, their adaptability, felt a flicker of doubt. The Cravorn general leaned forward, his voice dripping with mockery. "This is your champion, humans? A frail creature with no weapons to speak of? You might as well have surrendered." Erin didn't look up at him. Her focus remained on Garrett Hack, her mind working through calculations and contingencies. She could feel the weight of the galaxy's eyes on her, the judgment of countless species who had already written humanity off as weak, as insignificant. But she didn't care about them. She cared about the task at hand. The ceremonial gong sounded, signaling the start of the duel. Garrett Hack wasted no time. With a roar that shook the air, he charged forward, his massive frame barreling across the battlefield like an unstoppable force. His mace arm swung in a wide arc, aiming to crush her in a single blow. Erin moved. Not with panic, but with precision. She sidestepped the swing at the last possible moment, the mace crashing into the ground where she had stood, sending a spray of molten rock into the air. The crowd gasped, some in awe, others in anticipation of her imminent demise. She didn't counterattack. Not yet. Instead, she retreated, her movements swift and calculated, keeping just out of Garrett Hack's reach. He pursued, each step shaking the ground, his strikes coming faster and harder. To the spectators, it looked like she was merely delaying the inevitable. To Erin, it was the first phase of her plan. The battlefield became a dance of contrasts, Garrett Hack's raw power against Erin's agility and precision. As he chased her across the terrain, she led him toward a section of jagged cliffs near a lava flow. Her eyes flicked to the unstable rock formations above, calculating angles and distances. She wasn't just evading, she was guiding him into a trap. The Cravorn general's smirk faltered as he watched the chase. Something about the human's movements seemed too deliberate, too focused. The thought nagged at him, but he pushed it aside. She was small, fragile, no match for Garrett Hack. The tension in the arena was palpable. Delegates leaned forward in their seats, their attention riveted on the unfolding battle. What had started as a display of Cravorn dominance was becoming something more unpredictable. Erin's focus never wavered. Every step, every feint, every calculated dodge was building toward her next move. The galaxy might not have believed in her, but she didn't need their belief. All she needed was the right moment, and it was coming. The gong's reverberations faded into silence, and Garrett Hack roared, charging forward like an avalanche of death. His mace arm swung in a massive arc, the air itself rippling from its sheer force. To the alien spectators, the fight seemed over before it began. No being could withstand the sheer power of a Cravorn champion. But Erin wasn't where the mace landed. She sidestepped with precision, the weapon slamming into the ground and leaving a smoking crater in its wake. Her movements were fluid, almost calculated to the millisecond, evading each attack with the ease of someone who had seen this all before. Garrett Hack's strikes grew faster, his frustration palpable. He was a predator, used to prey succumbing to his overwhelming strength. But this prey wasn't playing by the usual rules. Erin darted toward a cluster of jagged rocks, her movements deliberate. As Garrett Hack lunged, she triggered a concealed device with a flick of her fingers. A concussive blast erupted beneath him, throwing him off balance. It wasn't enough to harm him, not directly, but it forced him to stumble, his massive frame struggling to regain footing. The crowd gasped. Erin didn't use the moment to attack. Instead, she planted small, inconspicuous devices in the terrain as she moved, her path deliberate. Garrett Hack charged again, undeterred, his blade arm cleaving through the air. Erin ducked beneath the swing, sliding under his legs and planting another device at the base of a cliff. A Cravorn's biology was both their strength and their weakness. Their reliance on brute force often blinded them to subtler threats. Erin exploited this with surgical precision. Each trap she laid wasn't designed to injure directly but to disrupt his rhythm, forcing him to overextend, to chase, to react. Garrett Hack's frustration grew. He struck at the ground, sending shards of rock flying in every direction, roaring in fury. "Stand and fight, human!" he bellowed, his voice a guttural thunder that rattled the battlefield. Erin's calm voice echoed back, her tone infuriatingly even. Why would I fight on your terms, Garrett Hack? The crowd stirred. This wasn't just evasion, it was psychological warfare. Garrett Hack snarled, swinging his mace in a wild arc. Aaron had anticipated it, leaping onto a nearby boulder and triggering another device. A flash of light erupted, blinding Garrett Hack momentarily. He stumbled back, shaking his head to clear his vision, but Aaron was already gone, slipping into the shadows of the battlefield. The Cravorn general watching from the stands scowled, his confidence waning. This wasn't how the battle was supposed to go. The human wasn't engaging, wasn't making mistakes. She was controlling the flow of the fight, and Garrett Hack, for all his strength, was playing into her hands. Phase 2 began subtly. Aaron shifted her tactics, her movements becoming less about evasion and more about dismantling. Garrett Hack's armor was a marvel of biomechanical engineering, but Aaron had studied its weaknesses. She deployed a series of drones, no larger than insects, that latched onto his joints and weaponized the very technology he relied on. As the drones emitted targeted pulses, Garrett Hack faltered. His blade arm hesitated mid-swing, its movements jerky and unnatural. His mace failed to activate its energy field, the weapon suddenly dead weight. Flashes of Aaron's preparation intercut the scene. Hours spent poring over Cravorn anatomy. Training simulations where she dismantled biomechanical systems with cold efficiency. Sessions with engineers, crafting tools specifically designed to counter Garrett Hack's unique physiology. Every move she made on the battlefield had been planned and practiced. Garrett Hack roared again, but there was a note of uncertainty now. His strikes became less precise, his movements less confident. Aaron exploited every hesitation, her traps and misdirection whittling away at his resolve. She triggered a series of sound bursts, frequencies calibrated to disrupt Cravorn auditory systems. Garrett Hack clutched at his head, his roar turning into a pained growl. Staggering, he swung blindly, his mace smashing into a cliff face and sending a shower of rocks tumbling down. Aaron was already on the other side of the battlefield, her calm, methodical approach unbroken. The turning point came when Aaron lured Garrett Hack toward the unstable section of terrain she had been leading him to all along. A massive lava flow snaked below a precarious rock formation. Aaron moved with precision, her traps herded Garrett Hack into position. She feigned a stumble, drawing him in, and as he raised his blade arm for what he thought would be a finishing blow, she triggered her final trap. Explosive charges, carefully placed at key points in the terrain, detonated. The ground beneath Garrett Hack gave way, and the cliff crumbled. The massive Cravorn stumbled, his weight working against him as the unstable ground collapsed. He tried to lunge forward, but Aaron's timing had been flawless. The rock beneath him fractured completely, and with a deafening crash, Garrett Hack plunged into the molten river below. The battlefield fell silent. The only sound was the hiss of lava consuming metal and flesh. Aaron stood at the edge of the broken terrain, her breathing steady. She had barely broken a sweat. In the observation platforms, the aliens stared in stunned disbelief. The Cravorn general's smug expression had vanished, replaced by shock and fury. Aaron turned, her gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The message was clear: humanity had triumphed, not through brute force but through ingenuity, strategy, and resilience. As the ceremonial gong sounded to declare her victory, the crowd remained silent. No one laughed now. Humanity had proven itself, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The silence that followed Garrett Hack's defeat hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. The Cravorn general, seated high among the council members, rose to his feet, his face a mask of fury. His booming voice cut through the quiet, trembling with rage. "This is an outrage!" he bellowed, his fists slamming against the podium. "Your soldier used trickery! Deception! This was no test of strength, it was a coward's game!" The gathered delegates murmured among themselves. Some nodded in agreement, though others remained silent, the awe of what they had witnessed still sinking in. Aaron, standing tall in the battlefield below, tilted her head slightly, her calm demeanor unchanged. She turned to face the council, her voice steady and composed. "You asked for a battle," she said, her words carrying effortlessly in the chamber's amplified acoustics. "Not a contest of brute strength, not a test of who can hit harder. A battle. And in battle, strategy, preparation, and adaptability win the day." The Cravorn general sneered. "You dare lecture us about battle, human? You barely survived your own." Erin allowed herself a small, wry smile. "Barely is still enough." The council leader, a venerable being with a translucent form and a voice that resonated like wind chimes, raised a hand to silence the murmurs. "The terms of the duel were clear," the leader intoned. "No rules were broken. Humanity's champion has prevailed." The Cravorn general's jaw tightened, but he could not refute the verdict. He sank back into his seat, his expression dark with barely contained fury. Erin turned once more to the gathered delegates, her stance confident but not arrogant. Her voice softened, not with weakness, but with an undeniable conviction. "We know we're not the strongest. We know we're not the fastest. Humanity has never relied on sheer physical power to survive. Instead, we adapt. We learn. We endure. And in the end, that's why we're still here." The chamber fell into silence again, this time contemplative. The alien delegates who had mocked humanity before the duel now looked at her with new eyes, some with respect, others with wary curiosity. The Cravorn general glowered but said nothing. "Let this duel serve as a reminder," Erin continued, her gaze sweeping across the room. "Underestimating humanity has always been a mistake." The council leader nodded solemnly, addressing the room. "Let it be known that humanity has proven its worth on the battlefield. Their resilience and ingenuity have earned them a place of respect among the stars." The proclamation echoed throughout the chamber, its significance undeniable. Humanity, once dismissed as fragile and insignificant, now stood as equals among civilizations that had mocked them. As the proceedings concluded, Erin was escorted from the battlefield, her steps steady but purposeful. The watching crowd remained hushed, a stark contrast to the jeers and laughter that had filled the chamber earlier. When Erin returned to Earth, the celebration awaiting her was overwhelming. Cities erupted in cheers, and her name became synonymous with courage and triumph. Yet Erin, ever humble, avoided the spotlight as much as she could. One evening, after the ceremonies and accolades had faded into the background, she found herself on a quiet hill overlooking the sprawling lights of her home city. The air was cool, the sky clear and dotted with stars. She sat alone, her adaptive armor set aside, her gaze lifted toward the heavens. In that moment of solitude, she reflected not on her victory but on what it meant. The battle had been a statement, not just of humanity's strength but of their character. It was a reminder that they didn't need to be the strongest or the most advanced to survive. Their ingenuity, their capacity to think differently, and their unyielding will to persevere were enough to carve their place in the galaxy. Her thoughts drifted to the Cravorn general's accusations of deception. To him, perhaps, her tactics had been underhanded. But to Erin, they had been necessary. War wasn't fair. Life wasn't fair. And humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to thrive despite the odds. She thought of the countless humans who would look up at the stars tonight with a renewed sense of pride, who would see themselves as part of something greater. For centuries, humanity had been underestimated. Now, they had shown the galaxy what they were truly capable of. A soft breeze rustled the grass around her, and Erin smiled faintly. The galaxy had taken notice of humanity, and with it came new challenges, new opportunities, and perhaps even new dangers. But Erin wasn't afraid. Humanity wasn't afraid. As the lights of the city twinkled below her and the stars above seemed just a little brighter, she whispered softly, as if to the universe itself, "We're ready." And with that Erin rose, her silhouette framed against the vast, starlit expanse. The battle was over, but humanity's story was just beginning.